every metal musician in the world is singing about how they're pissed off at America, except for professional Slipknot cosplayers Mushroomhead. But they also have a new album. It's Last Words here on The Pit. Play the intro. Thank you. Welcome to another episode of Last Words here in The Pit. I'm your host, Jordan Olds. I'm wearing a shared t-shirt. Let's get over it. I'm also here with Katy Irizarry and Travis Reilly.
Hey! Or something.
Now, I know how you guys are doing. You're wearing pajamas.
I may not even be wearing real pants. You'll never know.
You'll never know, bud. You'll never know.
Anyway, folks, we have a very special guest this week. The guitarist for Glacial Tomb and Khemmis, my boy, Ben Hutcherson. How you doing, man? You okay in the Plague Rebellion?
I mean, I can feel my antidepressants working extra hard lately, so I'm staying afloat.
Well, you were writing the slowest Misfits song I've ever heard for Slay at Home Festival.
Yeah, been staying busy with that. I mean, for all intents and purposes, I'm unemployed right now, so I'm living up that life, ? I mean, I am playing a lot of guitar. I am bathing every day. Those are my two benchmarks of a successful day. If I pick up the guitar and take a bath, then it's been a good day, and I'm on a pretty good streak, 4 or 5 in a row.
Bathing every day is very impressive, I have to say.
Yeah?
Well, 4 or 5 in a row, like I said. for the last 3 months, it's been up and down.
You're still doing better than I am, man.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm hanging in there. And, as for your question about making music, like I said, I'm doing a lot of that. I finally got the guys in Khemmis to move into the 21st century and taught them how to use Guitar Pro because we can't all be together. And I was like, if we don't write anything for 6 months, we're not going to have an album out next year, if there is a next year. So I ran a Zoom teaching session, which was weird because I haven't actually taught a class of any sort in a year. So it was a weird blast from the past kind of moment. And now, we're writing very slow music in a program used by tech death dudes. So things are going well.
Hell yeah, man. I mean, look, that's all you can. That you're doing more than most right now. And I want to talk about your cover of Skulls because it is the most out of left field, slow cover of that song. You made that song 4 minutes.
Yeah, we basically doubled the length. It's pretty wild.
How many BPMs you working with on that bad boy?
Well, so what's funny is it's whatever the original is. It's 110 or something. We just cut it in half. Because originally we were like, oh, it would be cool if we at the end we picked it up and played it at the regular speed, and we were like, no, we don't want to play that fast. And so it's 55 or 58 BPMs.
So Katy, Travis, and I were not here last week because we wanted to give our platform to Black Voices in Metal. If you didn't get a chance to watch that episode, go check it out. It's really cool. All right, guys, let's talk about these metal versus racism videos that are being put together by Luca from Necrot. So many artists are a part of this. Eric from Gatecreeper, High on Fire, Igor Cavalera, everybody.
Yeah, I saw Alex Skolnick was on it, members of Exhumed. It's really this is kind of the festival lineup that we need right now, that we're just reconcentrating that energy into something else. It's a really great lineup of awesome musicians participating in a really important series.
Yeah, I like the super quick cameo from Dwid from Integrity was my highlight.
This whole week, honestly, most of what we're going to be talking about is people using their platforms to help tons of different causes. Everyone is trying to, use their influence for their audience to try to get them to be more active and be more vocal. And I think it's awesome.
I think it's a great start. I think it's really important that we are explicit in our anti-racist, anti-fascist, anti-hate sentiments. But I think it's also important to remember that it's a start and that as important as it is to be vocal, being vocal about stuff doesn't facilitate structural change. And that's what we really need to see. And that's kind of hard given that we can't be in most of the places where we would attempt to affect this change. But this is something I've been thinking about a lot lately. We need the spaces where our music exists to be explicitly in support of marginalized folks. It's one thing to make a video and say racism, but it's another thing to own and operate and support businesses that in many ways are taking a chance to, offer a safe space to marginalized folks. And I think that's where we in the metal community, those of us that have these privileges, whether it's race, class, gender, whatever, where we can make the biggest change is to create and sustain those safe spaces. Like I think about the High Dive here in Denver, who are very clear in their position of anyone is welcome except for Nazis, right? If you're a good person, we want you here. If you find that you feel unwelcome in most other parts of the world, know that this can be your home. I know St. Vitus is like that as well. And so what I really hope is that these videos, sort of lead to a conversation about how we facilitate that change and, make metal closer to what it can be, and that we don't find ourselves too self-satisfied with simply putting our middle finger up and then calling it a day.
I think you make a good point of saying it's a start but I think it's really good for these bands to draw a line in the sand to their fans to be like, hey, we're not about that. So see ya if you are, but then,
Absolutely.
It's got to go much further than that. But I think it's a good start.
Yeah, it's absolutely a start. And, what you're talking about, Ben, Shauna Potter of War on Women, this is what she does in her free time. Instead of playing in the hardcore band War on Women, she wrote a book called Making Spaces Safer. She gives seminars. If you're interested in it, if you're watching the show, check out her book. Also, if you know someone at a venue, get them to get in contact with her, because it's important to make sure that as Ben said, every venue is taking the steps to actually make change.
I think too that it's the kind of thing that for a lot of people, they haven't thought about the kind of power that they wield in the situation. Like
right.
The idea of structural racism is so overwhelming that for a lot of white people, especially, we tend to sort of shut down and turtle up. And we just say, well, I can't do anything on my own. This is so much bigger than one person or even one group. Having a conversation with the people that own and run your local venues, like that is big change. That is a way to make, metal shows and hardcore shows and punk shows welcoming and safe to marginalized folks. There would be people who say, oh, well, you got to keep the politics out of it. No, we got to get politics in it. We need to be aware of the fact that everything we do is political. Everything that we spend our money on is political. And that if our music world is going to be the music world we say it is, there have been examples in the last few weeks of, well-known white men in the scene saying like, oh, well, we don't see the color of your skin. Like, Dad, yes, we do. Like, race exists. Stop pretending it doesn't. And make Black people feel welcome and make them feel welcome for being Black. Don't make them feel like they need to check their Blackness before they come to a show. Right. And calling a venue, checking in with promoters, talking to local bands. These are ways that individuals can affect really meaningful change.
There's a new Filter song. Does anybody remember who Filter was?
Hell yeah. Hey man, nice shot. They wrote a song about the most iconic politician, Bud Dwyer.
That's that song's about. I had no idea. I've seen that video.
Yeah, hey man, nice shot. Yeah.
Well, and this marks the second Filter song I've ever heard now. So
new Filter song. It's called Thoughts and Prayers. I read the lyrics. I watched the video. Is this a progressive song? Is this a yelling at everybody song?
I think it's progressive. That's the tone. It's super like topical, of course, and it's like on the nose. But I think it's progressive. It feels like it at least. It's like pretty heavy. I don't, like I said, my only frame of reference for the band is Hey Man, Nice Shot. So I don't know what they really are supposed to sound like.
I do not trust the progressiveness of a white dude over 40 who still thinks it's okay to say.
Yeah, those lyrics were real cringy. They were real cringy. Like on the one hand, sure, if you feel motivated, create art, I guess. But like, is the world a better place for this?
Yeah, that's my thing. I think that too many bands are kind of like, oh, got to write a song about this. It's like, no, you don't.
Corey Glover from Living Color has a new supergroup called Disciples of Verite, and they have Morgan Rose from Seven Dust on a song. What do you guys think? I
think having a guest spot by a drummer is very funny, but other than that, it's not what I expected when I heard Living Color. It's like kind of degenty, if you will. But his voice, he's an amazing singer. His voice sounds great on it. That's about all I got. I look forward to more guest drum spots.
When I just saw this collaboration, I was like, this is going to be cool because these are two musicians who both are on kind of like the different side of the spectrum of groove metal. It's like, this is a great collaboration of musicians. And I definitely was a little surprised. It was a little bit heavier, I think, than I thought it would be, but I still really dug it and definitely need to dig deeper into this project because I was really impressed by it.
Yeah, I've always loved Corey's voice, and it was really, it's so cool to see how versatile.
I mean, I'm right there with you. Like, this is not a song for me for the most part. The syncopated, chuggy stuff, and like, it sounds like a lot of modern metal to me. But frick yeah, for this guy, being in his however old Corey Glover is, like his voice, I think it's a rarity for someone to have a voice that can sort of work across time, like different styles of heavy music. And, this is a guy that for younger folks, like they don't know who he is. They don't know Living Colour. And I mean, I guess at the same time, when you mention Morgan Rose, you're probably not going to get a lot of like Gen Z metalheads. Maybe not. But all the same, I think, it gets this incredibly talented guy, more recognition and just more support for the argument that he's one of the most underrated vocalists in rock or metal of all time. I mean, the guy was in a touring company production of Jesus Christ Superstar for a period of time. Yep. Like, it's not a thing for most metal singers. So yeah, song and singing, amazing.
Speaking of metalcore collaborations, we got Mushroomhead and we got Killswitch Engage on a song at the same time. What did you think of this one, Travis?
It sure is a duet. It's basically like them just it's a duet that we didn't ask for. It's like, they're singing together a lot, or trading back and forth. It's it's a typical quarantine video, like, oh, I got some train tracks by the house, come film me. That mixed with like some police brutality footage. It's kind of like we were talking about with Filter. It's like I appreciate the sentiment and the message behind it, but it's like, I don't know, did they need to rush to write a song for this,
I wouldn't lump this in with Filter. I think that both of these guys are way more attentive than whatever Filter is. They're talking about something very specific right now, addressing the issues in it, and it's definitely going to get like their fan base to pay attention to this. If you're a fan of Mushroomhead and Killswitch Engage, you're going to get what you want, and hopefully it'll inspire you to learn a little more about the Black Lives Matter movement.
Defending Filter is not going to be my hill to die on, but you don't know what that guy knows or what he doesn't know.
Which is the problem with the song. I don't know what he knows or thinks. All right, Pat Sheridan from Fit for an Autopsy went viral for doing a really nice thing for a woman on the side of the road. That's the weirdest sentence I've ever said, but it's a really nice thing that happened this week, so we got to talk about it.
I guess a woman, wasn't paying attention and ran out of gas and broke down on the side of the road, and he pulled up and, asked if she needed help. So he went and got her gas and got her back on the road. And and I guess she posted about it and it went viral, and it was nice to see because most of my memories are from being a teenager at CBGB's and trying to not get my head spin kicked off by Pat. So it was nice to see him in a good light.
He saw like a black woman in a situation where the police could be involved, and he decided to intervene so that they wouldn't and potentially harass her for ridiculous reasons, because that's what's happened. That's, that's acting on what we're seeing. So good job, Pat.
None of this surprises me. I know Pat. I guess I know him a little bit differently than Travis does, and he's a good dude, man. So I can't say when I saw this I was surprised, because this is totally in his character to do something like that.
Let me clarify. I know Pat as well, and he's super sweet. But when I was younger, he was terrifying at shows.
I feel like that's kind of the moral of this story, because he also looks kind of terrifying. So it's also kind of that don't judge a book by its cover. Like, here's this like dude who might look scary or questionable, and it turns out that he's a sweetheart.
Yeah, I think the woman mentioned that, where she was kind of like, I saw this, big tattooed guy that looked like intimidating, and kind of, she says, moral of the story, don't judge a book by its cover.
I think this is a great example of, again, like individual level action that what is seemingly just like being a good person, but like be a good person and being like conscious of the circumstances in which you are doing something selfless. And even by him just mentioning to her, like, look, I realized that if the cops came, they could, I don't remember the exact quote, but he was like, they give you a hard time of it. Like that meant a lot to her. And in addition to the fact that he was being kind and getting gas for and everything. And like, that's the heavy metal I love, man. That's the kind of, spirit of selflessness and community and inclusion that just, makes me love this music and makes me love the people that make this music. So hell yeah. Good on you, Pat.
All right, let's get into new releases. Spirit Adrift released a new EP to raise money for the NAACP. It's an EP called Angel and Abyss, which is a song on their last record, but it's also got a Rocky Erickson cover. It's got a Jimi Hendrix cover. This is sick. This rules.
This was awesome. This is a band that I feel like I got into maybe a little late in the game, and I don't really know why. Interestingly enough, it's a band that kind of reminds me of Khemmis, which is a band that I'm a big fan of, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, the original song was great, and the two covers I think were super in character for them, and they rocked it. This was a solid EP for sure.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I've known Nate for, oh my God, like 10 years now, maybe longer. We're both Southern boys that got the hell out of the Deep South, and I am always impressed with everything that he does with Spirit Adrift. I feel like every release, it just builds on everything that he's done before. And as far as the sort of broader context of people writing protest songs or whatever, trying to be part of the conversation, I really appreciate the way that they didn't try to position the music as anything more than what it is, and they let the fans support activism and support the NAACP by engaging with the music. And I feel like, at least in a lot of ways, that's perhaps the most effective way to get people around to supporting a good cause like this. Like, tell people that rock and roll is the way to saving the world, and people will be on board, I hope. And that seems to be the case here.
I also think that this is the way to do it, to point them towards the organizations. Maybe it's not always about your voice.
Yes.
Also, the acoustic version of Angel and Abyss rules.
So good. So good.
All right, guys, let's talk about Lamb of God from Lamb of God.
Yeah.
But Lamb of God is not historically that political of a band, but Randy has become political over the last few years, especially since getting sober. We've heard his opinions of Lamb of God, and he feels that it's like kind of a job sometimes. And I feel like you can hear that he's a little more reinvigorated because he gets to talk about the things that he cares about now. He's at marches all of the time. He's constantly trying to get his fan base to participate and pay attention, and I think he's using the stuff he talks about properly. They wrote a song about the pipeline and Native American genocide, and he brought Chuck Billy in to sing the words so that it means something that's coming from the proper voice, especially with the size of a band like Lamb of God.
Yeah, and it's also it's dudes who are like pushing 50 from the South. So I think it's awesome that they have that stance, and kind of like putting that on their fans to maybe open some of their fans' minds a bit. It's definitely the album that I was most looking forward to this week. From the opening track to the end, I think it's great. The opener is just kind of like has that vintage Lamb of God tempo. One of my friends was talking about the track Poison Dream that has Jamie Josta from Hatebreed on it. And says that his cameo comes in, it's like the Kool-Aid Man just comes through the wall. and that's Josta's guest vocal spot, Yeah, and then there's the track called Resurrection Man, which was my standout one, I think. Super heavy. He drops a good bleh at the beginning, which is always fun.
It got me thinking about when I first got into metal, and that the bands that were the equivalent of Lamb of God, what my options were in the late 90s. And growing up in the South, like, we had Pantera, and for a lot of obvious reasons, that's not so great as your like gateway into extreme metal. I mean, for I think all intents and purposes, Lamb of God is the Pantera of today in terms of bringing people into the more extreme world, but they're also that sort of bridge band between death metal and thrash, and then the more sort of accessible heavy metal. And I love the idea that there are 14, 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds that are getting into heavy metal. They find Lamb of God, and they find this, politically savvy, articulate frontman, over, playing like very heavy music. and that it's catchy, it's well done, the songs are very well written, and that, you know, that as a gateway band for young folks, that really makes me hope that like the next iteration of young heavy metal kids coming up are going to be much more aware of the world that they are part of, and feel more connected to one another and more connected to heavy metal, and that they won't have, you know, rebel flags on their guitars.
This was actually a really big deal for Lamb of God because this is the first album in, I believe, 4 or maybe even 5 albums that they're without Chris Adler, who's been their longtime drummer. I mean, he was on hiatus for a while due to an injury. And at that time, they saw his now replacement, Art Cruz, fill in for him. And now, so this is the first album with Art. And I think a lot of fans, when you're used to a lineup for so long, I mean, there's bands that their lineups are constantly changing, Megadeth, and then which Sadler has also been a part of. There's also bands that you just get so used to this one lineup. It's been such a loyal lineup for so long. And as a fan, that could kind of rock your world a little bit. So I think a lot of people were really looking at this album under a microscope. And I know I was one of them. I was very curious to see how they would fare. And you know what? Art really steps up to the plate. I thought he sounded great. I felt that this still sounded like a true Lamb of God album. They didn't make any big changes. Of course, I think their sound has matured a little bit. They kind of always mastered the art and just maturing a little bit, but still staying completely true to themselves. But otherwise, this is a Lamb of God album. And I really have to say, Art really, he stepped up to the plate for sure.
We're going to talk about Mushroomhead. They're back. You know, they got a new album called A Wonderful Life. If you aren't familiar with Mushroomhead, if Slipknot is Janis Joplin, then Mushroomhead is Jackie Jorp Jomp from 30 Rock. Katy, you have the strongest opinions on this album. Go off, Queen.
I wouldn't say they're the strongest, but out of everyone, definitely the most positive. I remember Mushroomhead from when I was a burgeoning young metalhead, just consuming everything MTV and like, you know, mainstream metal was throwing at me. So I listened to that band, but it was never one that stuck like some other bands, like say, for instance, Slipknot. I listened to this album fully expecting to hate it. And I actually kind of liked it. Like, I really feel like this band kind of reinvented themselves. They still have that new metal vibe, but it's way more smooth and way more mature than what they were selling us, like, you know, 20 years ago. I'm shocked they're still around, honestly, because I kind of forgot they were a band. I mean, I'm not going to say it's going to have me revisit their stuff or anything, but I was impressed and really surprised. This was actually a pretty cool record, I'm not gonna lie.
It was my first time hearing them. I fortunately, being the age that I am, I totally missed the train on all the new metal stuff. I was a little too old to get into it, I think. I'm not gonna say that I was a fan of the album, but it was definitely much cooler than I thought it was gonna be. Definitely pro wrestling music, which is awesome. It's too long, 17 songs. I don't want to hear anybody have a 17-song album unless the songs are like 2 minutes long, you know? So that was a little excessive. But yeah, I don't know. It was like there was like moments where it reminded me of like Marilyn Manson. And then there was moments where it was like Faith No More a little bit, you know? But yeah, overall, pro wrestling.
Whenever someone references like, you know, it reminded me of Faith No More or Marilyn Manson, that means I'm not going to like it because those are the two artists that I like that sound like that and no one else.
I'm with you on the Faith No More thing. I like Faith No More kind of, I feel like indirectly invented new metal, but they're the only good band of that ilk.
I don't really have like too strong of an opinion other than it's just not really for me. And one time I read a Stereo Gum article where their former singer just went, Slipknot's better. They're just better.
They are. I mean, there's a reason why Slipknot is selling out arenas, and I didn't know Mushroomhead was still a band.
Did Mushroomhead come before Slipknot, or was Slipknot first?
I don't know. That's a
Who cares?
I mean, I don't know.
If you're not first, you're last.
Ooh, nice one.
Ricky Bobby.
Trash talk, Squalor. Ben, what do you think?
So I totally missed this band before, and I'm bummed that I'm just now discovering them. Because this EP is awesome. And I was really surprised to see that they worked with Kenny Beats, who produced, I mean, he's done, I think, almost exclusively hip-hop albums, but he's done like the newest Denzel Curry, and I've been listening to that a lot. So it was a weird kind of crossover there that I've been listening to that album. I listened to this and I'm like, oh, the same dude produced these two very disparate sounding things. It's rad. It's up tempo. It's aggressive. I mean, it sounds kind of like what I expected Trash Talk to sound like, knowing just sort of about them in the ether. But I was into it, and I think we could use more short and sweet EPs in this world.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like listening to the Mushroomhead album and being like, this is so long, and then getting the Trash Talk, and the Trash Talk EP finishes, and you're like, oh man, I could go for like another 5 minutes of this, you know? But yeah, they're a band, you know, like I used to play with them, like when they first started. I remember them like playing with us in Petaluma at the Phoenix Theater, like in the little hallway there, and like the singer Lee was like super young. And it's been cool to see them progress over the years, just becoming like a known band all over the world. But yeah, it's a cool little EP. Something Wicked was my standout track. Super punky for them. I dug it.
I would actually like to see more sort of like integration, I guess, of the hip hop production side with the punk. Like there are a lot of parts in the EP where it feels like, okay, it makes sense. Kenny Beats is like bridging the two songs, but like I want to hear injected into the heart of the music, like even more, like let that influence be even more on the sleeve. Just because I think that would be fun and wild, and I'd be stoked on that.
We need the Judgment Night soundtrack part 2. We need it so badly.
Yes. All right, strap in, folks. We got a new Protest the Hero album called Palimpsest, and they are serving up tech metal, Moana, Disney soundtrack that's all about yelling at Trump's America, but they're all Canadian.
I'm kind of glad you said the Canadian thing, because I love this band, but I was also like a little confused when I saw the album art. Is there an American flag on a Canadian band's album? But at the same time, I guess we're just the punchline now. I mean,
the whole album, they're just taking a dump on America, and boy, do we deserve it.
Yeah, but I will say this album also is another big deal because the vocalist, he actually sustained a vocal injury not too long ago, and they had to cancel tours, and this album almost didn't happen. It was amazing to hear his voice, and I really noticed a change in it where I felt he was hitting some higher notes when he was doing his clean vocals, and that was definitely, I mean, a big credit to his recovery. And as a fan of that band, I was really excited that they were able to finish that album because it was definitely a little iffy for a while.
There aren't many bands that like came out when I was in high school and I still like them. I loved listening to this album to see that they have gone more hard in both directions of what the band was. Like they're techier than ever. The melodies of the songs are bananas. It's literally like a metal version of like a Crazy Ex-Girlfriend episode, just like a modern musical. It's so fucking big. Every song has a crazy big chorus. Super fun.
I'm glad you guys love it because it's not for me. It's like video game metal, or it's like I get it, you guys are really good at your instruments, but it's just I'm not into it.
You don't like a Final Fantasy soundtrack?
I don't.
This is like at the drive-in, but also just like crazy. It has like crazy scales, but like odd time signatures, but it's not like normal tech metal because they're kind of having like a little bit of fun with it.
Sure. I'm glad you actually made that At the Drive-In reference, because that's kind of how I would compare them, like a metal or heavier version of At the Drive-In, or like the Mars Volta with like kind of like the chaos that but it's not chaos like say like Dillinger. It's just like a different kind of, like, I guess more artsy chaos, if that makes sense.
Guys, we're finishing off with Vile Creature. Glory, Glory, Apathy took the helm, and it's apropos because this is my favorite album of the week. It takes a rare band for me to like a really slow like doom song. Ben writes a lot of those that I like. And this band is also that. I loved this album. What did you guys think?
This is an early contender for my album of the year. Just everything about it is ambitious and beautiful, which I think is a weird way often to describe heavy music, especially stuff that is as gnarly as this. I mean, I've loved this band for a long time. I love the people in this band, and even then I was blown away when I heard just the first single they put out, and then when you hear it in the context of the full album, it's a really incredible collection of songs. And I think that the last the sort of 2-part title track is something unlike anything I've ever really heard. I mean, it covers so much sonic terrain that, like, if you're not feeling it by the end of this record, then like something is broken deep down inside you.
Now, like after hearing you talk about it, I'm like, man, I want to go back and listen to it again, because like I didn't have super strong feelings about it. We covered their single, I think 2 episodes ago maybe. Yeah, it's hard for me to describe. It's like super dark and aggressive. Unlike Trash Talk, this is a 5-song album that's almost 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Which is like, it's a little excessive, but it's like I don't mind it when it's doomy, kind of slow, and all of a sudden you're like 45 minutes past. Initially it wasn't something where I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go back to this. But hearing you speak so highly of it, it makes me want to like kind of dig into it a little more to see if it's for me.
Yeah. Also, I think you said like a contradictory sentence, because you were like,
probably
you were like, oh, it's doomy, but it might be a little long. The most famous Doom song is 1 hour.
It's hard because I feel like this album on paper is something I should like, and it's something I want to like. Even I remember the last episode when we did discuss that single, I kind of was in the same boat where I was like, I didn't quite get it, but also same thing like Travis is saying, I heard everyone else talk about it. I'm like, I still want to give this band a chance because I think there's something that I'm missing. And then I heard this album, and there were definitely moments that stood out to me. But overall, there was just something that wasn't clicking for me. And I know it's going to be a weird statement because I just said how much I like Protest the Hero, a band that is wildly dissonant. But I felt there were moments on this album of dissonance that just weren't the kind of dissonant that I like. Does that make sense? Like, I don't really know how to articulate it. And I again, like, I feel like I'm a traitor as like someone who, is a fan of doom and sludge, that there's just something about it that hasn't clicked with me. And maybe it is one of those albums you do need to listen to more, because I've had that happen where there's albums on first listen I didn't feel good, and then I revisited and suddenly started feeling much differently about it. So I think this might be a grower and not a shower. And it's definitely something, after hearing you guys speak, that I do want to revisit it, and because there's something, I feel like I should like it, but I like Mushroomhead. Am I okay?
It's also it's hard too, because we're like talking about like 5 albums this week, and it's like they all came out on Friday, so it's like it kind of like, I mean, personally, like for me, I wind up kind of spending more time with the albums that jump with like that stand out to me right off the bat, like, so I knew Lamb of God was going to be my favorite of the week because I previously liked a lot of their material, so I spent the most time over the last couple of days with that album. And like, so for this album, for Vile Creature, it didn't really grab me, so I feel like I probably didn't spend enough time with it. But I forgot to mention before, the album cover is really sick. I think the art's awesome for the album cover.
Oh yeah, definitely.
If the riff is the thing that you sort of gravitate to first, then I can see how that would be a little bit alienating for some. At the same time, I think it's so effective at forcing you into a particular kind of headspace. Like, if Protest the Hero is the soundtrack to running through, COVID New York, this is the soundtrack to being stuck in my house for the last 3 months. And the only humans I've talked to are my partner, my therapist, and now all of you. And like, that's it. So like, like, this sounds like the inside of my head in a lot of ways. Yeah. And so the resolution at the end, the fact that it is beautiful and uplifting, and that it is, pushing back against darkness instead of sort of wallowing in it. I'm really not trying to tell everyone that like, you have to listen to this because if you don't get it, then you're wrong. For me, it just hit the spot. It just landed in my heart in just the right way. And like I said, like I love KW and Vic so much, and I'm proud of them for creating something like this, because this is truly an accomplishment. And I hope they are very proud of it.
I think for Doom, I tend to gravitate towards like the Sabbath-y kind of vocals of Doom bands, So for them, vocally, it's a little like jarring,
Not even then, not really, because like I love a band like Amun-Ra, and I could sense that same agony in the vocals on this album. But again, I don't think that's where the problem is. I think it's something in the music that's, I don't know. I think, but honestly, I'm glad that we're having this discussion. I'm hearing the perspective of Ben and Jordan, because like I said, it's making me want to approach this with an even more open mind. And it's making me want to, instead of normally, honestly, when we come on here and there's an album I don't like, I'll never listen to it again. But this is actually making me want to say, you know what? Let me really sit down with this again, and maybe again. And on third time, if I'm not into it, fine, but I really feel like it's something that maybe I just really need to take in. And that could be the litmus test, you know, is it, I don't know. We'll figure it out. Or am I just broken inside and I really just like Mushroomhead now?
If it's me and Ben who are enjoying it, we are both very broken inside.
yeah, there's a lot wrong here. So,
all right, folks. Well, on that polite disagreement, we must bring this episode to a close. Katy, plugs.
Follow me, Instagram, Twitter, @MercifulKate.
Travis.
You can find me at the name my parents gave me on Twitter and Instagram. It's Travis Reilly.
Ben, where can the people find you? Where can they find your bands?
You can see the nonsense that I personally post, Twitter and Instagram @Ben Hutcherson. Follow Khemmis @Khemmis Doom on all platforms, and Glacial Tomb @Glacial Tomb, all one word on Instagram. Oh, wait, no, all one word on Twitter, Glacial_Tomb, because somebody else took it on Instagram.
How dare they? Let's go find him and fight him.
I've been Jordan Olds. Please follow 2 Minutes to Late Night on Instagram @2 Minutes to Late Night, on Twitter @2M2LN. It's been a dream to do a Bruce Springsteen song on the show, and we did it with Jay Weinberg, and he did it as like a Father's Day gift for Max. It's so awesome. I love it. In such a we did Candy's Room, such a weird choice. Please check it out. It's really cool. Mel from Royal Thunder sings on it. She destroys it. Guys, please follow The Pit on all of the social medias @WeAreThePit. If there's something that we forgot to talk about on this episode, let us know in the comments. We are here every Thursday talking about metal business that's happening currently. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.